Crag Scott. I am the founder and CEO of Fuuz, the manufacturing platform, and we are here on our podcast series, The Manufacturing Matrix. Here with a couple of team members that I'd like to introduce to everybody. First, Steve Modrall over here, and Brad Hafer is joining us today, our very special guest in from the East Coast. Ready to chat it up today about IT, OT, the complexities and challenges of implementing and deploying technology for manufacturers. So I'm going to open it up, and I guess it's Fire on Craig Day. So
I'm kind of curious, though. We could also get some overall trends of what Brad sees out in the industry.
Yeah. Brad, you do a lot of traveling and have a lot of fun hanging out with a lot of folks, social, presence there. So tell us a little bit about what kind of things you're seeing out there. What's happening? What's popping?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Well, throughout my career, I've been in a lot of companies that have worked in a lot of the three-letter acronyms, from ERP to PLM to CAD to EDA to MES, et cetera. And that whole category, especially in the industrial space, is pretty hot right now. Spent a lot of my time fielding calls from investors who are looking to leverage expertise that I've had, throughout my career in companies in that space, and what I'm seeing and learning what they're seeing about what's interesting today. Obviously, anything SaaS and cloud-based, anything that solves problems for manufacturers are really important for a whole host of macro reasons that I'm sure you've talked about on previous podcasts. One thing in particular, maybe you can help me better understand through this conversation. A lot of times we think about the manufacturing stack, right. Starts at the top floor with classically an ERP solution, right. Comes down to the shop floor with like an MES solution, and even further on down to the machines with like a production monitoring solution. Right. And there's all sorts of vendors all up and down that stack. Some do much or all of it, and some just do a piece part. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's one area to ask you about, like what you see and maybe where Fuuz fits in that. I always learn something new every time I talk to you.
Yeah. So you're right. We've had a lot of conversations on some recent podcasts, some with some customers and partners talking about this very topic, and there's, I think, a lot of grassroots movements out there that are starting in OT because we have a lot of controls engineers, right. Manufacturing engineers that just want to get their hands on some information from the machines, right? And they want to do something with it because they're, they want to make everybody's lives better. That's what engineers do. And so these grassroots movements, I think, are going out there. They're looking for solutions that they can utilize to get the data, analyze the data, and do something with it. Now, these guys don't have budgets, right?
Right.
Typically. And some of these are, black ops projects that they just want to put something together, show somebody in the plant what can be done, and then kind of go from there, right? And these could be career builders, whatever. And so there's a lot of open source technology out there. There's a lot of point solutions, free license, download me, use me for 2 hours.
Right.
That's what they're going after. That's what they have access to,
Right.
They have good ideas and good intentions, but a lot of times I think those projects stall out. They get to a certain level, plant management, VP of ops, and they're like, that's great, but how do we scale this across our enterprise? How do we go global with these 8 different applications that you've creatively bundled together here? But how do we take this at scale, right? And I think that's where IT and OT need to get together. You need to have executive sponsorship in this. And that may be a great way to start as a proof of concept of what can we do. But I think ultimately you need to look for probably a commercial software package that does those things, or a platform. I could recommend one. It's called Fuuz. And, it does all of those things that those applications do, but in a unified place.
Right.
To generalize, I think a lot of what we see, right, we get a lot of inquiries on the website, and, they're just not at that place yet where they're ready to take a solution like that across, a global enterprise.
It's hard. A lot of companies are just trying to collect the data to start with, and that's just been a challenge for them. And like you said, it becomes a little science
What do
project.
we do with it once we get it?
Now what?
Yeah.
I think you're right. I went to IMTS this past summer, the Super Bowl of industrial technology, and a lot of the folks walking the floor out there seemed to be like those folks that were shop floor workers trying to understand some technologies that they could implement, very, very quickly, but none of them really seemed to be, able to put together to complete that full digital transformation. A lot of bottoms up, I'll call it, or it's the data ops folks, and nothing wrong with that. I think, going after and grabbing that data. I think it's a different stack though than what that I'm used to seeing when I talked about ERP to MES on down versus, take the data, do something with it using MQTT brokers and data lakes and then you get some analytics and you can kind of like solve for a certain problem, but that doesn't seem to be a real enterprise solution. It seems to be, sharing data across the enterprise, but not managing your workflow or managing production or, getting results out the door.
Yeah. Yeah. These are, I think, what problem solvers do, right? The MacGyvers that are out there that want to solve a problem, and that's a great solution.
Right.
And a lot of our customers that come to us as CIOs and CTOs, and they're looking for something that's a little bit more scalable for the enterprise, and usually it's a top-down driven approach that we're seeing, where the CEO is saying, we need a business transformation. We need to do something. It doesn't always start on the shop floor with industrial controls. It might be, hey, we've got this ERP. It has these limitations. Let's streamline some of these business processes. I had somebody on a call earlier that was talking about 14,000 new commercial contracts every year that have to be reviewed from their OEM customers. So automating a business process like that, it took them 6 months previously to do manually, that now they're doing in 1 day with the Fuuz application. So it's not, I think there needs to be a broader vision.
Right.
And we had a customer on that said, it's not really digital transformation, it's a business transformation, which kind of makes sense because a lot of this you hear about, I think, from the OT perspective, and that's where you get a lot of these, I call them grassroots movements, but a lot of people very smart people getting together to solve a very discrete problem.
A lot of those people have day jobs, they're either overseeing production or managing inventory or whatever it is. And they say, hey, I need to fix this. So I'm going to try to find some tools that I can put together. I think you mentioned open source earlier that, some of those tools could be open source. That's great, versus maybe open architecture. Could you explain to me what the difference is?
Yeah. So open source is almost like crowdfunding, right?
Yeah.
It's freeware that a lot of people use, and oftentimes is better than commercial software because so many people are using it and they're providing feedback to the developers and they're fixing and enhancing things. And back in the day when ERP systems were built on Progress databases, right?
Yeah.
Now everybody's moving to open source databases like Mongo, and Postgres and these things that are they're actually better, right? So there's nothing wrong with the open source technology. We use a lot of open source technology in our stack. Open architecture is interesting because I think, our entire platform is kind of based on that concept where we have the full vertical stack, shop floor to top floor, but being open source without open source, right? Giving people the keys to the kingdom and the ability to integrate and extend and augment and be flexible. But ultimately having that commercial license behind it, that we're supporting it, we're hosting it. You don't have to worry about infrastructure. You don't have to worry about, what happens when these open source developers make a change to their API that impacts, I have Hive and Snowflake and all these different things. And I can get them all working once really well, but if any one of those links in the chain makes a change, now the whole thing crumbles like a house of cards potentially.
Right. So you mentioned flexibility. I think that's really important because everyone will say their manufacturing floor is different or their company's different, their industry's different. Talk about flexibility versus speed of deployment. I've heard things or people say, well, there's no such thing as an out-of-the-box MES. Is that true? Or talk to me about how Fuuz does that.
Yeah, well, I think, MES should be built. MES should be blueprinted because every customer, we were talking about, bean counters can only count beans if we can make the beans, right? So the focus, and the other one we talked about was like when I owned a manufacturing company and I'd have potential customers, Caterpillar or whoever, come through and determine whether or not they wanted to do business with me. they didn't want to know what ERP system I was running, right?
Right.
It was, what are you doing on the shop floor to protect us, to protect our customers and deliver quality product on time, which really has nothing to do with ERP. So I think, from that aspect, yes, MES is very important. It's the competitive advantage oftentimes for a manufacturer, right? How they do something is what differentiates them in the marketplace. And if the software isn't enabling them to operate in that competitive space, then you should get rid of the software. Right?
Right.
You should move to something that is flexible. Does it impact the delivery? Probably,
Yeah.
right? The further you go from what I would call a vanilla, right? So we always start customers off with our vanilla
Best practices we've
best
seen.
practices,
Yep.
and this might fit 70 or 80% of your business. And then the other 20, 30%, it's the last mile. You got to be able to get that company the last mile.
It's
Otherwise,
their secret sauce. That's how they do it differently and better in their environment. So
right. So we were kind of born. That's how we met each other, right? I was working on getting customers that last mile and filling those gaps where those gaps needed to be filled, because I've had companies tell us that man, if it weren't Fuuz is our strategic advantage,
right.
If you get an out of the box software or a point solution, everyone who's using that out of the box software or point solution is operating their business the same way. So what competitive differentiation is there at that point?
Software shouldn't dictate how you run your business. No.
Right? So as an OEM who's buying, I'm going to understand all of these people are using this point solution that forces them to behave this way. These guys over here have flexibility. As my business changes and evolves, I know the supply chain can change and evolve with me, right? They're not limited or prohibited. And, it's a lot of our customers are just, they're trying to get new business. You've got all these new EV manufacturers that are doing things different and out of the box. So the whole paradigm is changing.
Look at how their manufacturing processes have changed just over the last 5 years. I mean, it's tremendous. And
Oh, yeah. All the automation,
right.
New equipment, new technologies. I'm going next week to a brand new greenfield steel mill for the first time ever in the United States, is doing continuous casting.
Oh, wow.
Right. So, brand new technology that's being developed in, Europe that's going to be brought over here. They're going to use Fuuz on the shop floor. These are really forward thinking, companies that want to make sure that they're, good for the next 10, 20, 30 years. They don't want to get locked into something that was boilerplate. So it's
I think the pressures are there for all the macro reasons that you've talked about previously. Certainly the pressure for manufacturers to compete globally, lower their cost, attract workers, whatever it might be. At the same time, as I mentioned, I talked to a lot of bankers and investors in this space, and they love to make these pretty market maps of all sorts of logos. There's 1,200, 2,000 logos of industrial software solutions that you can buy up and down the stack, IT down, OT up. Where have you seen some of your most innovative customers start? How do they separate the wheat from the chaff when they're looking at all of those potential solutions and pick something and move forward with it?
Well, the evaluation process can be pretty challenging, right? Because I think, I was talking to somebody that said they approached this a little bit differently, in that they looked at it as more of a business transformation. So it's not something you would ever just go out and say, let's focus on OT software, right? But they knew they needed to solve some OT challenges, right? So you also can't just go focus on IT related software and solutions. So ultimately, that's where they landed on Fuuz, right? Because we don't fall in any one particular category. There is no magic quadrant for what we do, because we don't pigeonhole ourselves into one situation or another. And being a platform, gives us that open architecture, so we can do whatever we need to do, connect to whatever we need to connect with, and be that agnostic, Swiss Army knife tool set for what they're looking for. So that happened to be, I think, the direction from our forward thinking customers that are progressive, that are trying to future proof their operations. Not everybody is looking for that same thing. Some people just need a simple point solution to plug it in and solve a problem today, and we'll worry about the next problem tomorrow. And if that's another point solution, then
Certainly solving a point solution would be easier by definition. Let's get something going. Let's get some value. Maybe that's at the machine connectivity to give your team a set of dashboards or whatever it might be. Not everyone needs to start at the top and replace their entire ERP system and start ratcheting down. Maybe it's a meet in the middle somewhere and solve some overall management problems for manufacturing.
Yeah, and what's the ROI going to be? You know, we talk about that a lot of times. You know, collecting data from shop floor equipment is wonderful. Once I get the data, what am I doing with the data? Is it actionable? Is it something that's going to help me, increase my gross profit margin on products that I ship, or improve my first time quality?
Does it get analyzed and charted, and it's a week old?
Yeah,
usually,
yeah.
And that's the challenge where you look at these companies today, and some of the things that we can do for them, it's instantaneous. They can fix quality before it even hits the floor. It's before it ships out their doors. Even they can understand what the ramifications are. Yeah,
and build workflows into the platform too, right? Which are your own artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities around the data that you're collecting. So it's predictive and preventive rather than reactive.
Right.
So I think pretty much every solution right now is reactive, especially if it's a point solution, because it doesn't talk to anything else. So you're collecting it in a silo, having to analyze it and figure out what to do with it. Right. We get companies asking us, well, we want an OEE dashboard. Sure, we can give you that. Yeah. But that's not going to solve the reasons why your OEE is so low.
Right.
Right. All it's going to do is give you a big red flashing number on the screen. How do you fix it now, right? If you're not collecting the data that the operator is providing us and all of that information, are we scanning the right materials? Are we having material handling issues, replenishment issues? Like, what's really driving that? And that's what the MES is there to help you with.
Got it. What are you seeing out there, Steve, when you call on prospects or existing customers that are maybe changing the last couple of years?
Yeah, a lot of it, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but a lot of it is around how do I do more but eliminate some of the tech debt that I've got? How do I do more with less vendors? How can I reduce some of my operating spend that I'm spending in technology if I can consolidate down to some of the technology and like what Fuuz can do with the platform and the iPaaS that's built into it? We can remove some of the layers that they've invested in and save them quite a bit going forward. But there's a big push for helping these companies continue to get better, what overall operational wise, as well as trying to understand their efficiencies, trying to understand visibility to the floor. Do I buy a new machine, or do I have unused capacity that I've never seen before because I'm not really understanding our efficiency rates and what shifts run better than others and why, and digging into those details.
Yep. Steve, in your career, you've been through also a couple of 3-letter acronym software categories.
That's right.
And companies, from their infancy through maturity.
Right.
Where would you put Fuuz, as a recent member on the team, where do you put Fuuz relative to others you've seen as they've grown through their life cycle?
Absolutely. No, one of the things that attracted me to Fuuz was not only the people. The people are wonderful. The people come from manufacturing. They really get it, whether it's the sales team down to the implementation team and the development team. We can relate and be a trusted advisor to our customers. But the exciting thing is the technology, what Craig and the team have built from the ground up. It was witnessing firsthand the problems these manufacturers experience and building something that was future-proof. So allowed you to be agile, flex your business, but also not create more technical debt or not customize something. That was the problem we always ran into, was there are great products out there, and as soon as you make a change to it, you'll never be able to upgrade it. And that's what companies struggle with, is now they're stuck on an island of source code that probably wasn't documented, created by an SI, and they're pigeonholed there for the rest of the time that they're going to be using that technology. So the fact that we give our customers the keys to build their own applications, we give our partners the ability to build their own applications, all in a modern day SaaS web environment platform. It's the best of both worlds because they can tailor it to their business, but at the same token, never be on an island of source code.
So growing quickly.
Yep.
How does any CEO or chief revenue officer handle that growth? Like what keeps you up at night?
A lot of it is we got good systems in place ourselves, putting in processes, having great partners helping us with the delivery of the product. We've got new partnerships with Strategic Information Group. We've got partnerships with Razorleaf, PwC, working with some others as well that we'll be announcing soon. But as we continue to grow, having that great group of companies to help support us in these larger implementations will be key, because at times we got to be able to scale as the customers are scaling themselves. So excited about how the overall company growth's going, and looking to see if we can put the gas pedal down and grow.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the ecosystem that just starting to build for partners, and as you said earlier, Craig, the MES solution may be 70-80% there, and then someone is going to help modify it to get it to the point that's meeting the specific customer needs, and whether that's your team or the customer themselves or this network of partners. And the value to the partners would be able to work with a modern application and then build their own IP on top of that to deliver value to their customers, versus some of the other technologies in the market, I think, are complete toolkits, and it's 100% built from scratch, which time to market, time to value seems to be slower. And maybe in the old day, the model was, from SIs that I've seen in my career, they loved that because it was a lot of consulting dollars.
They can make a career out of it.
They can make a career out of that. But that's not particularly good for the end customer.
Not at all.
Paying a lot of consulting dollars to the SIs. And I think the model that you've built here it's a mix. You've got this out of the box piece, and then some additional work that needs to get done, and there's an implementation, and there's the modification and customization that the partners can help do to really specifically meet those customers' needs in a balanced approach that's very quick to delivery.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're the first cloud-first manufacturing solution for these partners that really enables them to build that IP once and then go out and add value to their clients. The legacy products that were out there that they were building their solutions in,
one-offs.
They're all one-off. They're all versioned applications, right? So you go from 7.9 to 8.0, and you're rewriting all that IP all over again. So all this technical debt. Now our partners can build these applications in Fuuz. It's a versionless platform, so it's always up to date. Their app is their app. They can put it in our marketplace, make it available to all of our customers, not only their own. It's just a great tool. They could build it once and never have to worry about it again. So, yeah, it's a lot of advantages for them long term, right? To better support their customers.
It reminds me of when I joined a first startup, like close to 25 years ago, dating myself, coming out of the corporate world. I said, being in a startup is pretty cool. It's easier to move a rock that's rolling than one that's sitting still. And I think, the situation we have here is the rock is rolling and the solution is out there. And if you need to tweak it along the way, that's a lot easier than starting from a standstill and, having the inertia to try to get it moving.
Right.
I think even the industry has changed in that amount of time. A lot of these SIs, they would not talk about a vendor. They wanted to be agnostic. And I think now the partnerships that you've been able to build, these folks are teaming up and saying, you know what, we know what the best of breed solution is. And it's a win-win for our customers and ourselves. So congrats to both of you.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's fun times. It's fun solving problems.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us here.
Great to be here. If there's anything else I can do.
I'm glad you were in the neighborhood, just bopping around.
Just up the street from Ann Arbor. Got a big in-state rivalry game this weekend.
Boy.
Looking for that. Both teams are struggling a little bit, but we'll see.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.